The following is meant for entertainment and educational purposes. It is not meant to establish a doctor-patient relationship. Please consult your mental health provider for your mental health needs. Hello, welcome to Chez Eric, my home, where we talk about psychiatry and religion with a focus on how to apply it to your life. And we will be going through and finishing the final part of William James's Lecture 3 of the Varieties of Religious Experience. And I hope you're enjoying it so far. And this one, I think, is going to be a really interesting one. I'm not sure if it'll be happy or sad, but we'll see how that goes, okay? Now, just to recap, for the first part, we learned that there are objects and there were religious objects, and therefore these religious objects can't be sensed with our senses. And the second thing is that, abstractions that we have about reality are significant. That's important. And then finally, previously we talked about the mystical experience, and we contrast that to rationalism. So what are we going to talk about today? What is the big sort of punchline that he's trying to talk about realities of the unseen in this particular lecture of Lecture 3? Well, he kind of goes into it and he makes a very interesting point that I'm not sure a lot of people fully understand. And even when I first heard this from a good friend of mine, I had to really wrap my head around it. When it comes to metaphysical, and religious experiences, right? The place where rational comes to play, they always come after the fact. Does that make sense for a second? So when you have a mystical experience, when you have a sort of thing that you can't quite understand to understand this religious stuff, you rationalize, you explain, you articulate what you're thinking after that actual experience. And what does that mean? What it means is that our descriptions of religiosity, our understanding of religiosity, because it's in this space, it has a tendency to be rationalized after the fact. So therefore, we're in this quasi-reality where it's not about the facts. It's about you have an intuition about the way the world works, this sense, right? Because, religion is an abstract concept, it's not a sense thing, but it's this sense of reality. And then based on that, you rationalize it, and then you create an idea of what religion is through a series of rules or principles or tenets. But this is the thing, though. If you have this rational description of religion with the rules and the descriptions and the principles and the tenets, and someone else comes along and tells you something that is factual, that is against those rules and principles and tenets, you won't be convinced otherwise. Because the reason why you believe in the religion, why you have those beliefs, why you behave in a way that the religion exists, is in this intuitive space. It's in this quasi-rational space, and you only really rationalize things after the fact, and no rational thing would ever convince you otherwise. And that's something that's really, really hard to really wrap your head around. And a lot of people would disagree. A lot of people say, no, I believe in God because it makes sense. And this is the proof of God. If you write down proof of God in YouTube, you'll have a bajillions of proof of God. It's like, look at the mountains. That proves that God exists. Look at the sky. That proves that God exists. Like, look at these theoretical arguments that proves God exists. But I want to ask you, have you ever been able, or have you ever been personally convinced that God exists because of a rational argument? Or have you been able to convince someone else because of a very simple rational argument? Or the opposite, have you ever been able to have a rational discussion and a rational series of reasons and then suddenly stop believing in God and changed your mind? There seems to be something more that's going on than mere rationality. And that's what James is trying to say and trying to demonstrate to us. So that the religious experience is not this thing where we can parse out on a rational basis with, again, sense experiences with, touch, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting. It's something more. And so what is that more? Well, we know that religious things that we discussed before, is a very serious concept, right? and it's very solemn, First we start with, fear. There's a fear-based version. Then we can be happy, and then we have a form of self-surrender, right? But the thing is that when it comes to understanding religion in this way, it's very complex, right? We have, happy moods and sad moods, sadness and joy. We have differences in societies and time periods and moving around everything. When we look at the religious follower, the serious follower, right? They are serious and they know that any time they could deviate, right? They could lose their, sense of religion. And if we look at, let's say, the more optimistic version of that, it's that they can, experience the joyfulness of God when they get rid of all the dangers that could exist to keep them away from God. And so this kind of then dovetails into William James' discussion of what we call healthy-mindedness that we'll have to start in lecture 4 of the series. But I guess get back to the original point of this particular, the whole entire point of this lecture series is to point out that when we're talking about the religious experience, it's an incredibly intuitive experience. And it's not really something that you can rationalize into or out of somebody's beliefs or principles or values. And we therefore have to explore more with his discussion through the other lectures about what really is going on. So what are your thoughts? Am I just talking out of my butt? Is this all kind of woo-woo, all crazy? Does it make sense? Does something resonate with you? Is it all just this gobbledygook stuff that, that's a common criticism of someone who is atheist, that all of this discussion about religion is just something that's so intangible, can't even deal with it. Forget it, I give up. Are you going to give up after lecture 3? I hope not. I hope you continue if you are of the atheist persuasion. If you're theist persuasion, do you think that you are a theist, you believe in God based on rational reasons? Or do you actually kind of wonder, maybe it is something more innate, something more intuitive that you have that maybe the atheistic part of our society doesn't? Let me know your thoughts below. I'll catch you next time. Bye. So there are going to be some minor delays with the book. I originally wanted it out in July 2020, but it'll probably have to come out in 2021. It's a bit of a long story, and I'll explain in a future heart-to-heart. But in the meantime, I want to thank you so much for your support. This YouTube thing is really actually kind of fun, if I really think about it, making videos and writing books. So I'm enjoying the ride. I hope you're enjoying the ride too. I'll see you later.